Once upon a time, the story begins in a beautiful mountainous region where a young man named Zaid was on a long journey. He was heading to a peaceful village called Nurpura, where he was to look after the old house of his late uncle, which he had inherited. Zaid was a kind-hearted and educated young man, but somewhat unaware of the cunning ways of the world. As the journey was long and evening had fallen, he decided to spend the night at a small, old inn. In the courtyard of the inn sat a white-bearded beggar, who walked with the help of a stick and wore an old cloak. Zaid greeted him respectfully and asked, "Baba Ji, where are you headed?" The beggar smiled and replied, "Son, I too am going to Nurpura." Zaid was surprised. After all, that was his destination as well. During dinner, they sat and ate together on the same mat. In conversation, Zaid mentioned that he was going to his uncle's house, his late uncle, Inayatula. The beggar was startled. "Inayatula? He was an old friend of mine. You're his nephew." Zaid nodded. The beggar sighed deeply. He was a very good man. The next morning, they decided to travel together. But before setting off, Zaid placed a condition. "Baba Ji, please promise that during this journey, you will not question any of my actions." The beggar was puzzled. What kind of condition is this? Zaid replied seriously, "Just promise. No questions." The beggar smiled and agreed, although he found it quite odd. They began walking along the hilly paths and narrow forest trails. By noon, they were tired. They spotted an old banyan tree and decided to rest in its shade. The beggar said Bismillah, took out some dry bread and a bit of curry from his bag. Zaid also brought out his food, but before eating, he pulled out an umbrella, opened it, and held it over his head, despite already sitting in deep shade. The beggar looked on in confusion, a frown on his forehead, but he remembered the promise, so he remained silent. Zaid calmly ate as if nothing was out of the ordinary. The beggar thought, is he mad or just very clever? Why use an umbrella in such deep shade? After eating, the beggar could no longer restrain himself. "Son, may I ask something?" Zaid quietly packed his utensils, closed the umbrella, and said seriously, "Baba Ji, remember the promise? That means our journey ends here." The beggar was ashamed. "Son, forgive me. I promise I will ask no questions now." Zaid paused, then said, "Let's continue." As they walked, night fell. They decided to spend the night in a deserted area. Zaid said, "Baba Ji, we must find a tree to climb and sleep on. It's not safe to sleep on the ground." The beggar was startled. "Climb a tree? I'm an old man. How can I climb?" Zaid reminded him of the promise. Reluctantly, the beggar agreed. Zaid found a strong tree, helped him up, and then climbed himself. They leaned against the trunk. The breeze was gentle, the forest silent, with the occasional hoot of an owl. Zaid was calm. The beggar thought, there must be a secret behind his behavior. The night passed. In the morning, Zaid helped the beggar down. They resumed their journey. The fresh air was pleasant. Zaid was quiet and composed, while the beggar now analyzed his every move. After some distance, they reached a riverbank. The water was flowing, but not deep. There was no bridge in sight. Zaid looked around and said, "We'll have to walk through it. There's no other way." The beggar nodded, carefully removed his old shoes, tucked them under his arm, and stepped into the water. Zaid didn't hesitate. He stepped into the river with his new, shiny shoes on. The beggar was shocked. He soaked his new shoes? That's foolish. But again, he remembered the promise and kept quiet. When they crossed the river, Zaid's shoes were soaked and covered in mud. The beggar quickly wore his dry shoes and gave Zaid a sarcastic look, but Zaid walked on, unfazed. The beggar thought, what kind of young man is this? Is he foolish or something else? Now they were near Nurpura. It was afternoon, the sun was scorching, and hunger gnawed at them. But Zaid didn't stop. Panting, the beggar said, "Son, let's rest and eat something." Zaid smiled and said, "Just a little more. Be patient. We're almost there." The beggar said nothing but thought to himself, "This is no ordinary journey. Perhaps only the destination will explain it all." Soon, they reached the village gate. Zaid shook hands with the beggar. "Babaji, this is where we part ways. I must meet a relative." The beggar, whose name was Haji Nemat, invited him home. "My daughter is a wonderful cook. Be our guest today." Zaid politely declined. "Thank you, Babaji, but I can't delay meeting my relative." As Zaid was leaving, he said something strange. "When you reach home, knock on the door and cough before entering." Surprised, the beggar asked, "Why would I do that at my own home?" Zaid smiled and left without answering. When Haji Nemat reached home, Zaid's strange advice echoed in his mind. At first, he dismissed it, but something made him pause. He knocked loudly and coughed. Moments later, his daughter Zainab opened the door. Graceful and modest, she asked, "Father, you knocked and coughed." "Yes, dear. A young man advised me to." Zainab turned pale. "Thank God, I was in the washroom. Had you entered suddenly, I would have panicked." Haji Nemat was stunned. Such a small gesture, yet it saved us from embarrassment. He sat down and shared the whole journey with her. Zaid's condition, the umbrella, sleeping in the tree, crossing the river, everything. Zainab listened attentively, then softly said, "Father, that young man wasn't foolish. He was very wise." The umbrella? Perhaps he didn't want birds above the tree to drop anything into his food. Sleeping on the tree? Snakes, scorpions, wild animals roam at night. He chose safety. Crossing the river with shoes on? Maybe he valued his safety more than his shoes. Removing them could have injured his feet, or they could have floated away. For the first time, Haji Nemat sat quietly, deeply pondering. Zainab said, "Father, if he's still in the village, please invite him for dinner." From a distance, the old village inn was visible. When Haji Nemat arrived, Zaid was packing, perhaps about to leave. "Zaid, my son," he called warmly. Zaid turned. "Babaji, yesterday I was unkind, but today I come for another reason. My daughter prays your wisdom." Zaid was surprised. "Your daughter?" "Yes, and she wishes you to be our guest, just for dinner. If you want, you can return to the inn afterward." Zaid thought for a moment and then nodded. "If the invitation is from your daughter, I cannot refuse. I'll come this evening." That evening, Zaid arrived. Haji Nemat welcomed him with honor. Zainab had prepared everything: meat curry, kebabs, fresh bread. She sent the food with a servant, but gave one instruction. When you serve him, recite this verse. "The moon's 14th night, the sky filled with stars. The mosque has 4 towers, standing at 4 corners." The servant memorized it, brought the tray, and recited the verse to Zaid. Zaid looked at the curry, counted the bread, smiled, and replied, "Tell your mistress, the moon's 14th night, but the stars are few. Of the mosque's 4 towers, one has fallen through." The servant returned and repeated the verse. Zainab's face turned serious. "Tell me the truth. Did you eat any curry or take a piece of bread?" The servant went pale. "Forgive me, miss, the aroma was too tempting." Zainab said firmly, You're dismissed. If you can deceive a guest, you can deceive anyone." Dinner had ended. As Zaid was about to leave, Haji Nemat asked Zainab, "Daughter, how did you think of all this?" Zainab replied, "Father, I saw the wisdom in that young man. Every step of it was full of meaning. So I thought, why not test him? And even his answers were filled with wisdom." Haji Nemat thought for a long while and finally said, "Daughter, you are wise, and so is he. I believe you two are perfect for each other. If you allow me, I would like to talk to Zaid about marriage." Zainab shyly said, "Father, as you wish." It was morning. The golden rays of the sun were slowly falling into the courtyard. Haji Nemat's heart felt unusually restless. He sat and stood up several times, sometimes looking toward the door, sometimes toward Zainab's room. At last, he decided to speak his heart. He went straight to the inn where Zaid was staying. Zaid was gathering his belongings. Signs of travel were evident in his eyes. Haji Nemat gently called out, "Zaid, my son." Zaid respectfully responded, "Yes, Babaji, what is your command?" Haji Nemat remained silent for a few moments, then softly spoke, "Zaid, I have no wealth to offer, only a daughter, Zainab. She is the last joy of my home, my heart, and my life. I have seen in you the honesty that is rare these days. Your words, your conditions, your silence, all were filled with wisdom. I wish for you to take my daughter's hand. Will you accept?" Zaid fell silent. His face became deeply serious. Then he lowered his gaze and gently said, "Babaji, this is your great kindness. I do not consider myself worthy. But if you and Bibi Zainab truly trust me, I promise to uphold this bond with honor, loyalty, and sincerity." Tears of joy welled up in Haji Nemat's eyes. He embraced Zaid. A few days later, Zaid returned to Nurpura with his parents. The wedding ceremony was simple, yet filled with sincerity. Word quickly spread through the village that Haji Nemat had married his daughter to a strange, but wise, young man. After the marriage, peace settled into Haji Nemat's home. Zainab and Zaid respected each other's wisdom, understanding, and honor. One evening, Zainab asked Zaid, "Zaid, tell me honestly, why did you do all those things during the journey? The umbrella, the tree, the shoes, the condition?" Zaid smiled and said, "Zainab, a person's character is best revealed during a journey. It was important to observe Babaji's patience, his kindness, and his heart. I needed to know, was he worthy of respect simply because of his age, or did he also possess the forgiveness, strength, and depth that true elders have? The condition was a test for both him and me." Zainab smiled and asked, "And what about my test?" Zaid teased, "That was hidden in the verse, and you passed with flying colors." Then they both laughed. Thus, the life of Zaid and Zainab continued, full of knowledge, love, patience, and wisdom. And Haji Nemat would often sit in the courtyard and pray, "O Allah, grant every daughter a husband who honors her, and bless every father with the peace you have given me.